For decades, if you mentioned the Philippines in a conversation about global economics, you'd likely get a polite nod and a quick subject change. All the attention went to the roaring tigers of Asia, Japan, South Korea, Singapore, or the giant scale of China. The Philippines was the forgotten sibling, the overlooked archipelago often slapped with a painful nickname, the sick man of Asia. It was seen as a nation stuck in a loop of unfulfilled potential, political drama, and economic letdowns. Well, that story is dead. Something unexpected is happening in Southeast Asia. A quiet yet powerful shift is underway. A new economic reality is being built, not with loud speeches, but in the 24/7 hum of bustling call centers, in the rising steel of new skyscrapers, and in the relentless ambition of over 100 million people. The nation once looked down upon is now forcing the world to look up. This isn't a story about what the Philippines was. This is about what it's becoming. This is the story of how a nation flipped the script and is emerging as Southeast Asia's next powerhouse. The world used to see a laggard, left in the dust by its neighbors. That view wasn't wrong. It was rooted in a tough, painful reality. But today, a new story is being written in data, concrete and pure human ambition. While established economies are worried about decline, the Philippines is charting a course for explosive growth, with some of the highest projections in the region. This is the story of that turnaround, of how the sick man got back on its feet and started to run. To really get the scale of the Philippines' current rise, you have to understand the depths it had to climb out of. The label, "Sick Man of Asia," wasn't just a mean nickname. It was a diagnosis for a country crippled by decades of economic and political problems. The tragedy is, it wasn't supposed to be this way. Right after World War II, the Philippines was seen as a beacon of promise. It was widely considered one of the wealthiest countries in Asia, second only to Japan. Its capital, Manila, was a vibrant cosmopolitan hub. Its institutions were solid, and its future seemed incredibly bright. Everyone, from foreign observers to Filipinos themselves, thought the nation was set to become one of the region's great success stories. So what on earth went wrong? The answer is a tangled mess of political instability, massive debt, and deep-seated corruption, most famously defined by the two-decade rule of Ferdinand Marcos from the mid-60s to the mid-80s. This period is the key to understanding the look-down-on era. While its neighbors were building their economic miracles with smart industrial policies and export-focused growth, the Philippines was stuck in what's known as crony capitalism. Instead of being used for national development, the country's resources and money were funneled to a small circle of the president's friends and allies. Key industries were turned into monopolies, competition was crushed, and national debt exploded to disastrous levels. The country borrowed billions, but instead of building transformative infrastructure, a lot of that money was wasted on vanity projects or just disappeared into a maze of corruption. When the People Power Revolution of 1986 kicked out the regime, it was a moment of incredible national pride and hope. But the economic damage was staggering. The nation was left bankrupt, its institutions hollowed out, and its global reputation destroyed. The lost decades that followed were a painful struggle just to get back to zero. While the Asian tigers, South Korea, Taiwan, Hong Kong, and Singapore, were rocketing ahead with double-digit growth, the Philippines was just trying to keep its head above water. Political chaos continued to haunt the nation. A series of coup attempts in the late 1980s scared off investors and destroyed confidence. The economy would grow for a bit, only to be smashed back down by the next political crisis or global shock. The 1997 Asian financial crisis hit the Philippines hard, revealing the weaknesses that still lingered in its system. Throughout the 90s and early 2000s, its growth was pitiful compared to its neighbors. It was a story of false starts, of brief flashes of hope that were quickly snuffed out. This is where the "sick man of Asia" label came from. It was a comparison. Investors looked at the political risk and flip-flopping policies and decided to put their money somewhere else, in Thailand, Malaysia, or the new factory of the world, China. The Philippines was seen as high risk and low reward. It had a huge, talented population, but also a seemingly infinite ability to shoot itself in the foot. Poverty was widespread, infrastructure was falling apart, and a feeling of national pessimism started to take hold. Young, talented Filipinos saw better opportunities abroad, sparking a massive brain drain of its best and brightest. The perception was a nation perpetually stuck in a low-growth trap. A beautiful country with warm people, but not a place you'd bet your future on. It was a story of potential, yes, but potential that was wasted again and again. For global businesses, the Philippines was an afterthought. It's from this deep, historical low point that the modern transformation began. And it's what makes today's story not just surprising, but truly remarkable. So, what changed? How does a nation stuck in a rut for nearly half a century finally break free? It wasn't one big bang moment or a single magic policy. It was a handful of powerful forces that started coming together after 2010, creating a momentum that finally stuck. The shaky, unreliable growth of the past began to smooth out, replaced by a steady climb that got steeper every year. This turnaround wasn't an accident. It was built on 4 pillars that together created a new engine for the economy. The first and most visible pillar was the incredible boom of the business process outsourcing, or BPO industry. For decades, the Philippine economy ran on farming and money sent home from abroad. BPO completely changed the game, creating a massive modern service industry out of thin air. It started quietly in the 90s, but by the 2010s, it had become an absolute juggernaut. Simply put, BPO is when a company in the US or Europe hires a firm in another country to handle things like customer service, tech support, or accounting. The Philippines turned out to be the perfect spot for this global shift. It had a unique mix of assets no one else could match. First, a large, young, and educated population. Second, and this is the secret sauce, an incredibly high level of English proficiency spoken with a neutral accent perfect for Western customers. Third, a cultural familiarity with the West, which made interactions feel natural. And finally, the time zone difference created a perfect 24/7 global workflow. The result was an economic explosion. Global companies flooded into Manila, Cebu, and other cities, setting up huge service hubs. Suddenly, hundreds of thousands and eventually millions of good, stable jobs appeared. The industry generated an estimated $38 billion in 2024 and is on track to hit $40 billion in 2025 with around 1.82 million people employed. This did more than just pump up GDP numbers. It changed city skylines and created a new, aspirational middle class. Young Filipinos who once had to go abroad for a career could now build one at home. Their salaries fueled a huge boom in spending. This new BPO-driven middle class started buying condos, cars, and smartphones, creating a virtuous cycle of economic activity. The second pillar has been part of the Philippine story for a long time, but its power can't be overstated. Money sent home from Overseas Filipino Workers, or OFWs. For decades, millions of Filipinos have worked in almost every country on Earth, as nurses in the UK, engineers in the Middle East, and sailors on global shipping lanes. While this migration comes at a high social cost, the economic impact is massive and acts as a shock absorber for the entire economy. Every year, these workers send a staggering amount of money home. This figure regularly tops $30 billion, a huge chunk of the country's GDP. Think of it as a constant, recession-proof injection of foreign currency straight into the hands of Filipino families. When global crises hit, This flow of money stays remarkably stable. It pays for education, healthcare, housing, and small businesses. It's the foundation of the nation's consumer-driven economy, giving it a resilience that many other countries envy. The third pillar is a force of nature, a demographic reality that makes the Philippines one of the most exciting long-term growth stories in the world. While much of the developed world, including giants like Japan and China, is dealing with aging populations and shrinking workforces, the Philippines is hitting a demographic sweet spot. With a median age of around 25, the country has one of the youngest and fastest growing populations in Asia. This isn't just about having a lot of people, it's about the ratio of working-age people to dependents. For the next few decades, the Philippines will have a massive and growing workforce. This is the demographic dividend, a window where a country's population structure gives it a powerful built-in advantage for economic growth. This young population is a triple threat. They're a massive labor pool, a huge and growing consumer market, and they're naturally ambitious and forward-looking. This demographic tailwind will help fuel the Philippine economy for decades, a complete reversal of the demographic headwinds faced by its aging neighbors. The final pillar is the least flashy but maybe the most important, a new commitment to sound economic management. Starting around 2010, different administrations, backed by a highly respected central bank, began putting the country's financial house in order. They focused on responsible spending, managing debt, and controlling inflation. They built up huge foreign currency reserves to shield against shocks. This hard work didn't go unnoticed. International credit rating agencies, which had been skeptical for years, started upgrading the country's credit rating to investment grade. This was a massive vote of confidence. It was a signal to the world that the Philippines was no longer the risky, unpredictable market of the past. This stamp of approval lowered borrowing costs and, most importantly, opened the floodgates for a new wave of foreign investment. The foundation of BPO, remittances, and demographics was now reinforced with global financial credibility. Together, these four pillars created a powerful cycle of growth, pulling the Philippines out of its long slump. This mix of a services boom, steady remittances, a youthquake, a new economic discipline wasn't just a temporary boost. It was the foundation for a new reality. And we can see that reality taking shape right now, with hard numbers that are impossible to ignore. The era of looking down on the Philippines is over. Let's start with the headline numbers. In a world nervous about the economy, the Philippines is a bright spot. The economy posted solid growth of 5.5% in the second quarter of 2025. Looking ahead, major institutions like the Asian Development Bank and the IMF see this strong performance continuing, with growth expected to accelerate in the coming years. To put that in perspective, while many developed nations struggle to hit 1 to 2% growth, the Philippines is consistently among the fastest growing economies in the world. This isn't a fluke, it's a trend that's been building for over a decade. This sustained growth is pushing the nation toward a huge milestone. The Philippines is on the verge of graduating to an upper-middle-income country. The World Bank now predicts this could happen by 2026 or 2027. This isn't just a new label, it reflects a real increase in national wealth and standard of living. The government is aiming even higher, with a long-term goal to become a $2 trillion economy by 2050. But numbers on a screen are one thing. The real proof is on the ground, in concrete and steel. For years, one of the biggest complaints about the Philippines was its crumbling infrastructure. Manila traffic became a running joke for all the wrong reasons. That is changing, and fast. The government has launched an ambitious infrastructure program called Build Better More, one of the biggest investment pushes in the nation's history. We're not just talking about paving a few roads. These are transformative projects. New and upgraded international airports, like the one in Clark, are expanding capacity. A web of new expressways and bridges are connecting once isolated regions, like the stunning Cebu-Cordova Link Expressway. In the capital, the long overdue Metro Manila subway project is finally under construction. A multi-billion-dollar effort to change urban life for millions. And the massive north-south commuter railway will connect the main island of Luzon like never before. This infrastructure boom creates jobs now and, in the long run, lowers the cost of doing business, making the entire country more competitive. For the first time, the Philippines isn't just a place for foreign companies to invest. It's becoming an exporter of its own global brands. Nothing symbolizes this more than the rise of a cheerful, buzzing red bee, Jollibee. Jollibee is more than a fast food chain. It's a source of national pride. Once a humble ice cream parlor, Jollibee Foods Corporation is now a global giant. And it's not just for Filipinos abroad anymore. The company is in the middle of an aggressive global expansion, planning to open up to 800 new stores by the end of 2025, as it drives towards a long-term goal of 10,000 restaurants worldwide. Jollibee is going head-to-head with McDonald's on its home turf, and it's winning fans with its signature Chicken Joy. The company has also been buying up other international brands like the Coffee Bean and Tea Leaf and Tim Ho Wan. This is a powerful sign that Filipino companies now have the capital and confidence to compete on the world stage. The combination of stability, a young workforce, and massive infrastructure spending has turned the Philippines into a hot destination for foreign direct investment, FDI. Companies are now looking beyond BPO and investing in things like renewable energy, advanced manufacturing, and digital infrastructure. This confidence is also showing up in the country's innovation rankings. While there's still a long way to go, the Philippines has made steady progress, climbing to 50th place in the 2025 Global Innovation Index, its highest position ever. The report noted particular strengths in high-tech exports and business sophistication. This slow but steady move up the value chain is crucial for making sure the country's growth is built to last. The message to the world is clear. The Philippines is open for business, and the foundations for growth have never been stronger. But let's be real, it would be a lie to paint a picture of perfection. The Philippines is a nation on the rise, but it's also a nation still fighting some of its oldest demons. The optimism for the future has to be balanced with a clear look at the major hurdles that are still there. The question, will it last, isn't pessimistic, it's realistic. First and foremost is the massive challenge of inequality. While the skylines of Manila and Cebu are filled with gleaming towers, the benefits of growth haven't reached everyone. Poverty is still a harsh reality for millions, especially in rural areas. The gap between the super-rich and the poor is one of the widest in Asia. For this boom to last, it has to be more inclusive. Second, even with Build Better More, the infrastructure deficit is still huge. The current projects are impressive, but they're just a down payment. The legendary Manila traffic is still a daily nightmare, a reminder of how much more investment is needed. Third is the ghost that just won't go away: corruption. This is maybe the oldest and most stubborn problem the Philippines faces. Despite some improvements, the country still ranks poorly on global corruption indexes. In the 2024 Corruption Perceptions Index, the Philippines ranked 114th out of 180 countries, with a score that remains well below the global average. Corruption acts like a hidden tax on everything, scaring away investment and eroding public trust. Finally, there's a paradox at the heart of the country's greatest asset: its people. This is the challenge of human capital and the brain drain. While the Philippines has a young, huge, and talented population, it struggles to keep its best and brightest at home. The 2025 IMD World Talent Ranking delivered a tough verdict, placing the Philippines at a dismal 64th out of 69 countries, its worst showing in 2 decades. The report pointed to low investment in education and a quality of life that pushes skilled professionals to look for opportunities elsewhere, to move beyond BPO and into true innovation. The country has to find a way to invest in, develop, and, most importantly, keep its own talent. These challenges are not small. They are structural, complex, and deep-rooted. Overcoming them will take incredible political will and a sustained national effort. The story of the modern Philippines is a tale of 2 realities. It's the story of a nation finally breaking free from the chains of its past, powered by a demographic tidal wave and a new economic energy. You can see it in the soaring GDP figures, the massive new bridges, and the global ambition of its companies. The shift from sick man of Asia to a rising tiger isn't a future prediction. It's happening right now. And yet, it's also the story of a nation still battling the ghosts of that past. The challenges of inequality, corruption, and retaining its own top talent are huge. The path forward isn't a straight, easy line upwards, but what's fundamentally different now is the direction of travel. The forces driving this new era, the young population, strong domestic demand, and strategic reforms, aren't temporary. They are powerful, long-term trends that have set the country on a new course. The pessimism that once defined the national mood is slowly being replaced by a hard-won, realistic optimism. The Philippines isn't waiting for its turn anymore.